Zindabad to all those who have gathered in Wayanad and are releasing a very, very valuable study and a book based on that. I remember when I went to Wayanad to Mundakkai and Churumala, what was the heartbreaking disaster and its impacts. When I met the women whose houses were devastated and they were being troubled by the banks for the loan repayment, all that really is a picture that really affects everyone's heart. Now, Wayanad, a part of the Western Ghats, a beautiful and bountiful region, but also the risk prone region, also the fragile ecological region, having a special geology with biodiversity. And still, what is the change that has occurred? This study really brings out the history and also points to the future, brings in the analysis of why did the disaster occur in 2024, and at the same time warnings and recommendations are made to the governments, agencies, as well as the local self government and the people also. And that is a very, very important. I've seen that the study team includes an interdisciplinary team with Sagar Dhara, who is known always as a great ecologist and now known as risk analyst, but also Rajendran ji from Bangalore, the specialist on forests, on seeds, on soils, and so on. The climatologists are also a part of the team. And that is the importance of this study. The study brings out the causes behind the disaster. That the disaster started right from the 1920s and also 1990s and 2019-20 also. And the warning was given by the agency like Hume Center, which is also represented in the team. And still, there was no seriousness with which that was taken cognizance of. It is also clearly seen that the Wayanad is one of the regions in the Western Ghats where the status is changed with deforestation, with tourism. Deforestation is for plantation of not just tea and coffee, but also maybe cardamom and pepper. And all that has resulted in weakening the so called strong mountain ranges. Now, this was all brought out in the Madhav Gadgilji's report. It is also brought out in the Nava Keralam report, and also the after the 2018 flood, the post disaster needs assessment report also is very serious and pointing out the various clauses. Now, today, when the climate change has taken place in the fragile area, to have so many buildings built in the name of tourism, the infrastructure developed, and now a tunnel is planned and proposed and given clearance, although listing down various risks. All this is analyzed and well studied in deep by the team, which is something that we should salute them for. This book also has a very special contribution in terms of what was the process that went on with the Mepadi Panchayat. The Panchayat took better cognizance than the state government. This is also something very, very special. And they saved some lives. But we saw in Churumala how at the late night or early morning when this devastation took place, which was not a natural calamity, it is a human made or the state made calamity, I must say emphatically. But hundreds of humans really flew away. There is no record of the impact on the wildlife, but I could see the school affected, the mandir affected, temple, mosque, church, everything. So the nature is now reacting, not just responding. to the game played with nature due to commodification, as is rightly pointed out. And this is really ignoring not only the environmental legislations, but also not bringing in the needed land laws, as is pointed out. It is necessary because certain areas in Wayanad are to be declared as conservation areas, no development zones. This is what was suggested in Madhav Gadgil's report, which was not taken seriously, which was really ground-based, study-based report. And even today, it is necessary in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, every state where now disasters has killed hundreds of people and also caused great economic loss worth crores. But it has affected lands, it has affected water sources, it has affected biodiversity, which cannot be compensated in terms of money. So even if in the global summits there is debate that takes place on what is the compensation that should come from the Western so-called developed countries, I feel that the real recommendations are to be based on what can be done within the India like a sovereign country. And that recommendations are made by this study, and I therefore salute them and thank them all. The recommendations include the seriousness to be shown towards the climate change, the cloud bursts, the hot air with the carbon emissions that reaches the precipitated clouds bring down and causes condensation. But then how can that carbon emission be controlled? It is the message that is given by this study to the state government to ensure that there will be no carbon emission or mitigation of carbon emission in Kerala. Now, that causes due to the use of fossil fuel for energy generation, but also various kinds of industrialization, various kinds of construction, cement mining, steel manufacturing, and so on. So, how can this be controlled when commodification has taken place and capitalist market is controlling the development paradigm is a question that needs to be raised. We really expected a lot from the Kerala government. Achyutanandan was a very pro-dialogue chief minister. So even when the national highway related issue was raised, we could have dialogue with Achyutanandan, but there was no sincere and peaceful dialogue with the present chief minister. That was the saddest part. And finally, with the first rainfall, the national highway got damaged. So it is very necessary now to take everything seriously. The tourism must be controlled, not instigated and encouraged as is done in the Char Dham of Uttarakhand, which has caused the damage to the Joshimath like scenario. It is also necessary that in Wayanad, the deforestation must be stopped and afforestation should take place. Number of projects are declared by the governments, but that rarely happens. So unless the local panchayats, the so-called local self-governments are involved and people's participation and democratic process is followed, which is demanded by Ladakh, which is demanded under the 6th schedule, but it is necessary under the constitution for every fragile area and every district in the country. Kerala was known for its initiative in the district planning process. So how can that not happen in the Wayanad kind of scenario is our question. We also know that the geology and ecology needs to be brought together, and then the landscape of high ecological value, the complex terrain, the most high rainfall that is occurring, the erratic rainfall, everything needs to be taken cognizance of. And that is done by this study team. And so this book, this report should be taken very, very seriously. That is our appeal to the government of Kerala, the Politburo of the ruling party, and also the farmers, laborers, plantation workers, women, men, and also the Adivasis who are to be facing impact if the tunnel project from Kozhikode to Wayanad takes place. I remember that women were with tears in their eyes when they were referring how they took the loans from various banks and they built the small houses on that slopey area. Now, stopping that kind of construction to take place, whether in the name of tourism or housing, in such slopey areas is also absolutely necessary. It is necessary to study in depth the groundwater and the surface water sources which gets affected. In Uttarakhand, out of 4,600 water sources, now only 10% remain. So this is affecting the water sources, water flows, and that is also not properly studied by the Kerala government. So the disrupting the delicate region and every natural resource which is a part of the ecosystem needs to be understood as the human made calamity, and that is what is to be stopped. And we really want the population growth to be controlled, the tourism kind of market to be controlled, and it is necessary to really take care of those who are already affected. 5 crores per dead person is the demand of the team. Now the government has to finally decide, because central government is not giving proper funds to Kerala is also known to us. But then the proper rehabilitation measures must be taken, and immediately all banks must get rid of the debt that is troubling them, but also giving them alternative house which was promised by the government, but I don't think it has happened as yet. So all these things with the conclusions and recommendations of the uh, Hume Center like agency, Karunya like agency, who have done the great work, and the study team that has done an interdisciplinary study, is something that is now a major step forward. And we hope that if not the Mother Gadgil's report, which was 14 years ago, if not the Nava Keralam report, which has become Old Keralam, but also the post disaster needs assessment report, at least this study must be taken seriously, and there should be an immediate dialogue held with all such non governmental expert agencies and with individuals by the Kerala state government, and that is what should be guided and directed by the Politburo of the ruling party. And all the opposition parties also must take care of this, because whichever party is in power, they have to now take care of climate change towards climate justice, and also understand how the planet and the natural resources are under attack and threat, and how can that be saved. It cannot be saved without decentralization of development planning and change in the development paradigm towards sustainability and justice. I wish all of you the best future, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this program to release the book.